All right, I'm going to get started. It's a couple minutes after. I am going to turn this over to Anushri. We are very excited to have both ServiceNow and SecurityBricks on the call today. And Anushri, would you like to introduce yourself, and Raj and Raj and Ben can then introduce themselves.
Thanks, Teresa. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on wherever you are. We are very excited today to take you through this new accelerator that we are building, which is the Cloud Security Compliance Accelerator, which is going to be released in our May store release as an innovation lab. So I'm Anushri, and I'm part of our risk business unit product management team. And I handle our IT compliance and audit product, as well as a few of the accelerators that we've released in the past and integrations with other products. So I'm here to take you all through this new topic. And with me, I have Raj and Ben, who are joining us from SecurityBricks. So I'll let them introduce themselves.
Thanks, Anushri. Hey, this is Raj Raghavan. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening again. So thanks, Teresa, Anushri, and others for the opportunity to present or introduce the new accelerator. We are a security firm based in the US, and we have been working with ServiceNow for the past couple of years, actually, as a SME, to help them design security accelerators or compliance accelerators. So we're excited to be here and look forward to a great session. Ben?
Sorry about that. On mute always catches me every time. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar on cloud security compliance. I am a partner over at SecurityBricks. I just counted this morning. I realized I've been doing risk compliance and security and privacy for 23 years. I didn't realize it's been that long. So I'm excited to be here, and we'll look forward to you joining us today, and we'll demo and give you guys a demo of what we have in store for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. All right, so I am going to start with our safe harbor notice, because we are going to cover some topics which are coming in the future and some roadmap related topics as well. So just a safe harbor notice here. And before we start off with our agenda, I also want to talk a little bit about the Knowledge 360, which is coming up pretty soon. It's starting, the Knowledge is starting on May 15th. So if you haven't registered yet, we really encourage you to register. There are limited spots, so you can sign up today. And there are a lot of exciting topics and sessions that are happening in the Knowledge. So it'll be a great session for all of you, or a great experience for all of you to come in and join us. Okay, so with that, I am going to start with our agenda. So we're going to talk a little bit about our vision. What is the vision behind this Cloud Security Accelerator, and in general, the cloud strategy? And then we'll talk a little bit about cloud deployment risks, cybersecurity posture landscape. We'll also then cover the accelerator that we have been working on, which will be released next week. And then Raj and Ben are going to talk about the SecurityBricks apps that they are working on, which will also be released in the store, and which cover a lot of our content around the cloud as well. So, and we're also obviously going to do the demo. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Raj to talk a little bit about vision and then cloud deployment risks as well.
Thanks, Anushri. So thanks again. So here, a problem statement that we are trying to solve today is really about the configurations, the misconfigurations in the cloud. So we are the concept of, public clouds, people deploying it, few times a day, maybe it's much more agile. And the idea is, what are the risks posed, or what are the risks that are introduced when we set up the cloud, right? When we go ahead and deploy an application into the cloud. So we took the problem statement of misconfigurations and said, how do you measure the cloud security posture? And what is the context behind a vulnerability or a risk? And so the focus was when we started this, and Anushri will walk you through the journey of continuous monitoring, the ability to measure security posture that's been going on for a couple of years. And the spin that we wanted today is there is cloud security posture management. It is a very, very well-defined area. There's a lot of companies investing and doing, but the idea here is how do you extend that to multi-computing environments, multi-cloud environments? Everybody is using, enterprises are moving to the cloud, yet keeping some of their legacy data centers or hosted centers. And the idea is giving that multi-computing visibility. So when we take today from the public cloud, there is, as you can see, there's been a lot of risks. There's been a lot of news about incidents that have happened, security incidents that have happened, that have had implications, right? They have had some business implications. Gartner estimates that many of these cloud security issues or vulnerabilities are introduced through misconfigurations. And so the idea is, first of all, how do you gain visibility? How do you, see what you can do to prevent? Of course, detect is important, but then prevent it, but then also give some context to it. Everybody, cloud is so agile and people are spinning up virtual instances, bringing it down. There's so much agility in this. How do you make sure that you are protecting the data and at the same time, you're compliant to certain regulations? So the problem statement that we wanted to make sure here is to ensure that we are able to give you visibility into your multi-cloud environment from a security perspective and put a compliance context to it. So that's the approach and that's the vision of this accelerator. Next slide. Yeah. So we spoke about, and this is all data that's out there, which is, it's claimed that 39% of people will have hybrid, which is they'll have multi-cloud approach, multi-computing environments. 33% are going to have between probably AWS, GCP, Azure, Oracle, another cloud provider, IBM maybe. And then you have 27% who are actually probably only going to be in single provider, maybe all in AWS or all in Azure. But the idea is all of them come with the similar risks. They have similar regulatory impact, and they're going to have to be measured in the same way. So the challenges today, and if we talked about various misconfigurations and various vulnerabilities that are introduced, things like encryption, some of the credentials, it's very, as you go into the cloud, identity management, governance, ability to have privileged access, because there are more people, there are people who outside, this is transformed where you have groups like DevOps, you have new groups that have come in and are now accountable for the cloud infrastructure and the ability for the cloud operations and their control and their access that they have. So the idea here is there's a lot of challenge that are posed in the security world. And the question is, what is it that we want to focus on? What is it that we can control? Certainly, there are many things. We can reduce the risk because there are a lot of threats that we may not have a lot of control or visibility, but at least the ones that we can prevent it so that we are not leading into a bigger security event by our human configuration. So that's, I think, the approach here is, hey, what is it that we can manage? What is it that we can prevent in the cloud even before that, so that we are able to detect and also at the same time be compliant to regulations. Next slide. So this is your typical ecosystem within an enterprise. You have DevOps that's in charge of deploying into the public cloud. They own the public. They are able to. They have administrative access. They're able to use automation scripts. They're able to deploy various services within the cloud, and they are responsible to make sure the cloud is up and running. Then you've got security operations who are detecting to make sure that certain vulnerabilities have not been introduced or are not present within the cloud, and they run scanning tools. They run various processes to ensure that they are constantly checking to ensure that there is no security vulnerability. Now, then there is the IRM or the GRC team, which essentially is saying, look, we have got certain regulatory impact, we've got certain benchmarks that we want to ensure, or certain standards and frameworks that we want to measure our cybersecurity posture so that we are able to give you guidance. But then the span of control reduces because in the olden times when there's data center, you had different groups managing, but now we have different sets of people managing who are new to security or trying to put security as part of their day-to-day job. So the idea is how do you, with this reduced span of control, how do you ensure that the GRC, the compliance, the auditors have visibility? How can security ops ensure that these, if they find a particular, say there's an encryption issue or a password issue, how can they make sure that they can put it right in the prevention stage so that as it's being deployed, they're deploying it with the right scripts or the automated scripts that have these security controls in place so that when it is detected, that they actually find compliant, find no vulnerability so that it is compliant. So this whole life cycle is kind of where I think everybody wants to get to. It is tough because there is different people, different skill sets, different understanding. So the idea here is take these ensure that any of these, if you can avoid some of these configuration issues while deploying it, ensure that they have some regulatory impact so that when we detect it, we're ensuring that it is, much more secure. Next slide. So we talked about this, and today I'm sure everybody's fatigued by the number of regulations that are coming out. Previously, it used to be, your annual audit, you go ahead, you submit evidence where you're able to say, okay, I've tested my, here is a list of, my scans I've done over time. We have shown reduction in our security threats. We have got secure code training. Here is the logging. Here is how we, here is the sample logs to show how we revoke and grant access. So these were all, they were all fine because at point in time, once a year, you would submit it for various regulations. But as a cloud, things have changed, more regulations are saying, look, we need constant monitoring. We want to ensure that you're constantly looking for risks and not once a year or at a certain period of time. So the idea is continuous monitoring comes in place and many regulations. So let's take FedRAMP, which is, based on NIST 853, and it was codified by the president on December 25th, 22, that said, if you are a cloud service provider and you want to provide services to the government or any of the 438 federal agencies, you have to be FedRAMP certified and you have to have your name listed on the marketplace. Now that comes with some responsibilities. You go through, as a cloud service provider, you go through various, audits and checks and controls. But at the same time, once you are in the marketplace, you're expected to, on a monthly basis and, shorter periods of time, you're supposed to provide reports on your continuous monitoring reports. Basically, they're on your posture on a regular basis. What vulnerabilities you've had, what incidents you've had. So it is changed from, hey, I'll take it once a quarter maybe, to now show us every month what your posture looks like. For us to do that, as a cloud service provider, they need to ensure that they're monitoring on a daily basis or on almost a real-time basis. So the concept of continuous monitoring has come, and it is getting more into regulations. PCI DSS 4.0 has some of these, and they follow certain benchmarks. Like they're saying, look, follow CIS benchmarks, for example. They will tell you how to harden AWS. They will give you how to work with Azure. Use those benchmarks. Make sure you're technically, you have all your technical controls in place. Then you come and report to us so that we are able to get a visibility on your posture. We don't want to be surprised when there's an event. So more and more regulations that are coming down are requiring this concept of continuous monitoring reporting. So we figured this is going to be not anymore nice to have, it's going to be a must to have. It has become must to have. So the idea is, how do you provide tools? How do you provide, the processes so that you can do this in a multi-computing environment? Next slide, Anushree. Okay, so at this point, I'll hand it over to Anushree so she can speak about, the roadmap, what we built, and where we started, and basically specifically to ServiceNow's product. Thank you.
I think you guys actually have a question also. Did you want to check out the Q&A? Why are regulations only American-based? What about other countries?
Great question. Well, PCI is global. Thank you. We took an example. There are many international regulations too. We took some that just as an example, but there are, we just use these as examples, but absolutely, there are many international regulations. We have a list of them. Happy to share with you about some of these requirements. Absolutely. Sorry, these were just examples that we picked up. So.
Thanks, Raj. All right, so I wanted to take you through the journey that we've had with the accelerators, and some of them Raj mentioned on the previous slides. We released the Cybersecurity Controls Accelerator and Technology Controls Monitoring Accelerator way back in 2021 in our Quebec release. What we released were the CI 7.1 content, right? So we released the authority documents, citations, and control objectives for CI 7.1. And as part of the Technology Controls Monitoring Accelerator, we released a bunch of indicator templates, which are both basic, scripted, as well as manual templates to monitor CI 7.1, as well as ISO 27002 controls. So these indicator templates would actually go and fetch the evidence from other ServiceNow tables, from let's say your your SecOps products, from VR, SIR, your the discovery, your CMDB, HR, and other part of the ServiceNow organization as well. So we actually looked at all the different products that are there, and if customers have them enabled, you can actually monitor these indicator templates by fetching the evidence from all the different tables. So this is already available to everyone, and we are going to be enhancing it further in the roadmap. So you'll see that in a bit. In 2022, in Tokyo release, we released the DevOps Accelerator, which is mainly used for preventative monitoring of DevOps config controls. What we've done is we've mapped the control objectives coming from various regulations like CIS 8, PCI 3.2.1, ISO 27002, NIST 853, to the PACE policies, the DevOps PACE policies. So what we're doing here is, by mapping this, we are continuously monitoring the DevOps controls, but more in a preventative fashion. So if, for example, if a developer is about to release a code or deploy a code in a prod environment, if they're using a sensitive keyword or something which is actually violating these regulations or the requirements from these regulations, it would prompt the developer and give them a notion of what are they being non-compliant to, and they based on that they would be able to prevent from releasing a code which is actually going to fall into non-compliance, right? And then they can request an exception if they want to. So this integration and the accelerator is already available, and we will be enhancing it even further in future. Now, what we are going to be releasing pretty soon, which is next week, is the Cloud Security Compliance Accelerator. We are releasing it as an innovation lab in May. The innovation lab basically lets you download it in your sub-prod environments and try out the accelerator, but before it actually is available for general availability, which is going to happen in August. The intention here is for everyone to try out the accelerator and see how it works. If you have any feedback, if you want more content, anything related to that, we want that feedback so we can enhance our accelerator and provide more content in future. So that's the plan. And as part of this accelerator, and we'll go into more details, we'll also demo it to you today to show you what it does. But in a nutshell, it allows you to monitor your cloud controls from various regulations and frameworks and standards such as PCI, NIST, ISO, CIS, against the security benchmarks from Azure and AWS, right? So this accelerator allows you to monitor your cloud controls using our integration with the Cloud Security Posture Management product from SecOps. And we'll get into more details around it. So I'll explain that, what each of the product does and how the integration works. But this is our journey so far. And what we have planned for future and some of the ideas that I would love to share with you all is where we are going. So we are looking at three different buckets here. One is single pane of glass, where we want to provide you more content around dashboards and reports. The idea here is to have a single dashboard for monitoring both data center and cloud controls against all these different regulations, benchmarks, and standards in one single dashboard. So this is something which will give you overall the overview of your compliance posture against your data center and cloud controls. The other thing that we are planning is the cloud governance dashboard. So continuing on our cloud journey, a single dashboard which will give you various reports around managing your cloud governance. So that's another thing that we've planned in the future. And our partners like SecurityBricks, they are working on some of the accelerator, which will provide the dashboards, additional dashboards as well, that you'll be able to see a glimpse of it in today's demo as well. On the cloud compliance side, we are, like I said, the cloud accelerator is coming out. But other than on the cloud governance side, we will be supporting the CSA and CMMC in future. We will have more out-of-the-box content around cloud controls monitoring, additional CSPM policies and benchmarks that we'll be able to add in future. And there will also be partner-built content. And again, Raj and Ben are going to go over some of the things that they are working on. When it comes to accelerators and integrations, we will add, as I explained before, we will add more indicator templates to monitor data center controls from various other regulations. Currently, we cover only CIS and ISO, but we would like to cover all the other regulations, standards, and frameworks to give you more content, to provide you that way for continuous controls monitoring, to make it easy for you and give you those indicator templates. So that's the plan. Other than that, we are also planning to integrate with our SIR product, Security Incident Response product from SecOps, for MITRE attacks integration. So CIS 8 provides you some of the MITRE attack techniques against which your CIS controls are. So if you comply with certain, let's say, top 5 CIS controls, you'll be able to mitigate certain MITRE attacks. So that is available in your CIS 8 framework, but how do we actually integrate with the MITRE attacks coming from our technique from SIR, right? So that's something that we are going to work on in future. Apart from Azure and AWS integration, we are also looking at GCP, Google Cloud integration as well in future. So you'll be able to monitor any resources that are on the Google Cloud as well. Other than that, there'll be more content and accelerator from partners. So this is our future journey. And you can see that we want to add more content, more out-of-the-box integrations, as well as a way for you to monitor your cloud as well as non-cloud controls. So with that, I am going to move on and explain a little bit around what we are doing from a cloud security compliance management here. And today's demo is focused around our cloud security compliance accelerator, which includes, which basically has the integration with the CSPM module from SecOps. So what you can see here is we are providing you a way to monitor your AWS and Azure resources using a couple of products here. So CSPM, the Cloud Security Posture Management product, currently is in the Innovation Lab. So you can also try that out from the store. What it does is it provides you the out-of-the-box policies, which will help you to monitor your cloud resources against benchmark standards like CIS benchmark for Azure and AWS. It makes use of ITOM's cloud configuration governance product, which provides you an ability or tool to manage your cloud resources. So with the CSPM and CCG products, you can monitor your cloud resources for any misconfigurations against the CIS benchmarks. And that will populate as test results in your configuration compliance product. So all of these are connected products. You don't have to install them one by one. As soon as you install the CSPM suite of application or module, it'll install everything in the background. But the CSPM provides you those policies to monitor your cloud environments, which will provide you whether a certain cloud environment is misconfigured against a benchmark and provide you those test results, whether something is passed or failed, which is then mapped to the control objectives from IRM. And it'll give you more context around what is being non-compliant, right? So if you can take an example of one of the CIS 8 control, with this mapping between the CIS 8 control and configuration test, you'll be able to understand why a particular control is non-compliant because of some misconfigurations that might have been there in your environment. So it'll give you those test results and you'll be able to look at it real time and monitor them. So that is the end-to-end integration that we will be providing you. And with this accelerator, we will be providing you out-of-the-box content for mapping the control objectives to configuration tests. So a little bit of how this works, right? So you have your CSPM product and which scans your cloud environment with the help of CCG. When you scan the cloud environment, it provides you the results of configuration test data, whether the configuration test data is passed or failed. It'll be collected as evidence. And if there is a configuration failure or misconfiguration, it'll generate an issue on GRC side, and it'll basically provide you a non-compliance against a certain regulation or a standard. So as a end user, you'll be able to also request an exception. And this is a continuous process. So it's truly a continuous monitoring of your cloud environments. All right. So with that, I am going to pass it on to Ben to go over what this particular accelerator covers and some more details, and we'll get into the demo as well. If you have any questions, you can write that down in the Q&A and we'll take it.
Thanks, Anushree. That was great. So we're going to dive into a little deeper around CSPM, and we're going to look at the numbers itself. So as Anushree said, out of the box, CSPM provides you with sets of policies, a benchmark as you call it. For AWS, on the box to your right, there are 55 policies that are specifically designed and created for the AWS environment, and there are 51 for the Azure. Now, if you look to the left-hand side, it says CIS 8.0 for Azure, and it says 17. What that 17 number means is that of CIS 8.0, there are 17 controls specifically to CIS 8.0 that are mapped to the 51 policies that are out of the box. Now, you're going to wonder, well, there are 17, but yet there's 51 configuration tests. Why is there such a big discrepancy? And the reason for that is really, if you look at some of the controls, one control from CIS might say, ensure passwords are configured securely. And that translates to ensure that the password is 14 characters in length, that it expires after a number of days for you to change to a new password, and then your new password cannot be of the same old password. And if the account is dormant for a certain period of time, got to make sure that it's either disabled or removed, right? So that translates to multiple configuration tests from your cloud environment to ensure that that control pass. If, say, for an example of PCI, for PCI, it's all or nothing, right? So if any of those controls fail for any of the resources, that control automatically fails until you have it remediated or addressed or fixed. So that's why there is 17 that are mapped to 51 Azure configurations, and then there are 16 for the AWS environment that are mapped to 55. Now, of that 17, we have it mapped based on the authority source that are provided that are mapped to 51 PCI 4.0, 25 ISO 27002, NIST 853, there are 33 of them, and 15 for NIST 800-171. Now, these contents are mapped using the UCF. So out of the box, you're not going to get PCI 4.0, you're not going to get all of the ISO 27002. These are the UC references. The content, the authority documents are not in there yet. And this is where SecurityBricks comes in and provide those content to complement exactly what's currently out of box in there. Now, same methodology is applied for how we developed for the AWS environment as well. So I won't bore you with the numbers and repeat it again, but the numbers are a little different, obviously, because again, the controls are different between AWS and the Azure. So the control testings, even though some of the numbers, say 1.1 may be the same, but the tests and the conditions are different. Next slide, please. Okay, so a little bit about SecurityBricks. We've been a partner with ServiceNow for about 3+ years now. We were closely involved and partnered with ServiceNow to develop the first accelerator, the cybersecurity accelerator that was released back in 2001. And we are also a specialist partner that are with ServiceNow for consulting and implementations. So what we are planning for our side is Q2 of 2023. Well, go back a little bit. The CSPM product is going to be in the innovation stores already. I believe it's next week. And it's going to be GA in August. So in Q2, what we're planning to do is to release an app that will complement it. So like I said earlier, the content that are currently out of box right now is CIS 8.0. But we are going to provide additional content to support NIST 853 and PCI 4.0. So what will happen then is when you have your CSPM product installed, you got to configure, you got to connect it to your cloud environment, whether it's Azure or AWS. When you run the test, right now out of the box, it will give you your compliance status, your security postures around CIS 8.0. What we will provide is it will also provide you your compliance posture around PCI 4.0 and this as well. And along with that, we'll provide a single pane of glass as kind of shows a sort of at a higher level, executive level, exactly where you stand as far as your compliance across multiple regulations. You're not going to be seeing just one CIS 8.0, but you're going to be seeing other regulations that are coming out that we're developing and well, we have in the works to have it released in Q2. So those are all coming up. And a little bit about people here at SecurityBricks. As I mentioned earlier before, I didn't realize I've been doing risk and compliance and security privacy for 23 years. So most of our staff have at least 15 years in experience, and our focus is really on cloud security and compliance. Raj talked about certifications, accreditations earlier. We are HIPAA, PCI, FedRAMP. And in May, we are going to be CMMC accredited as well. So that's something very exciting for us. Let's see. Next slide, please. Okay, accelerator for multi-computing environment. So this is sort of an overview of all the accelerators that we have developed or in the process of developing and releasing very shortly. On the IAM side, we have cybersecurity controls accelerators. Currently, it supports CIS 7.1. The CIS 8.0 is going to be coming out soon, probably in August of 2023. Then we have our DevOps accelerators, which is the PACE accelerator, they call it. And that supports CIS 7.1, CIS 8, NIST 853, ISO 27002, and PCI 3.2.1. And today we're gonna, in just a little bit, I'm gonna give you a demo on the Cloud Security Compliance Accelerator. And that itself covers the CIS 8 and the common controls framework that I mentioned earlier that are mapped to 853, the NIST, the ISO, the PCI 4.0. And as I mentioned earlier again, the PCI and the NIST is going to be something that we will be releasing from SecurityBricks as an app in app stores that will support the multi-computing environment. All right, I'm going to move on to the next. Is there any question? Let me see. Just checking. Can we use a CSPM accelerator for ServiceNow instances as well? That itself currently is developed for the Azure and your AWS environment. So it's not for ServiceNow instances.
Yeah, but that's a great question. I think we'll definitely take it back to our CSPM team, the SecOps team, and give them the feedback. But as Ben said, it's for AWS and Azure instances. But we'll get back on this, check and get back on this.
Yeah. And though I didn't mention about Google Cloud, the GCP, that is something that's in the works as well. And hopefully that's something that we'll release soon. Now then, once that's out there, you not only have AWS and Azure, but you will have GCP, Google Clouds as well. All right, I'm gonna go and switch over to a demo, and feel free to submit any questions that you have, and we'll try to answer it best we can. All right, Anisha, I'm gonna take control, and I'm gonna share my screen. What happened to my screen? Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties here.
It's always the most difficult. Trying to switch
Yeah.
screens.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. So I think I got it here. Can you guys see my screen? You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and try to move this around. It's blocking me. All right, it's fine. Let's just go through this. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a quick demo here on the CSPM product. Once you get it installed, this is what it's gonna look like. I'm gonna go to look up cloud, and cloud within there, I'm gonna see cloud security posture management. Within a CSPM product here, there are sets of policies that I mentioned earlier. There are 55 and 51 that are also associated with. Are you seeing on the screen on the side? Maybe I should use my other monitor instead. Give me a second, guys. Let me just fix this real quick. Sorry about that. Move it to this monitor. Okay, does that look better for you guys?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So then have all that stuff on the side there. Okay, so this is a CSPM, and as you can see, there are a list of policies that are created out of the box for you. It addresses for AWS and Azure environments. Eventually, like I said, we'll include the GCP in there as well. If you look at these policies that are developed, I'll just open up one of them as an example, and let's just see 1.12. So if you open up one of these policies here, this one is especially designed for the AWS environment. And the purpose of this control config task is to ensure that any accounts that have been dormant for 45 days are disabled. And obviously, it maps to one of a CIS control or a PCI control. Now, if the way the policies are written are condition-based, and that's the nice thing about it, because now you can go there and modify it as you like. Say, for example, you know what, my company policies is a little stricter. I don't want to have 45 days before I disable the account. I want it to be 30 days, because based on our usage and our policies, any users that's beyond 30 days should be disabled. So I can just come down to where it says 45 days, and it's pretty easy to understand the conditions that are developed here. I can set that to 30 days instead. So now, whenever there is an account that has been inactive for more than 30 days, whether if it's using a password or a access key, it will then, if it sees something that's been around and still active for more than 30 days, it will set it as a failure. And it will create an issue, and it will create a ticket for remediations for you, and it will also shows up in your compliant posture that you have failed this control. Now, the nice things about this, again, is there are 55 policies for AWS or Azure and 51, respectively. But the thing is, hey, what if I want to build more? I can certainly, as a customer, I can add more myself. And just based on these samples you can set here, say, you know what? I have a special group of power user or special users that have privileged access that I want to lock them down even further. So for those sets of users, I want to ensure that any accounts that are inactive for more than 15 days are disabled. So I can go ahead and create a new policy, and based on the condition that says these sets of user that belongs to this particular group needs to be disabled within 15 days. And if I see anything that's active within 15 days to ensure there's no compromise of account to weaken my security posture, I want to make sure that those are removed or those are addressed right away. So I can create those policies. So now, just because there is only 17 CIS that are mapped to Azure, I can now create even more than that than what's out of box. But the thing is nice things about this is what you get out of box is you have your CIS 8.0 that's already created the authority content that's already created for you, and it's already mapped for you. So once you get it configured, you get it set up, you get it linked to your cloud environment account, to your resources, fire it up, run the test. It will show you a nice dashboard of where you are as far as your compliant postures against your against the CIS 8.0 benchmark. Okay, so now this is the conditions for 1.12 around 45 days, a dormant account. And once I have it all configured, let me go back here with all the accounts. And now what I want to do is I want to get it configured to my cloud environment. In this case here, I've already got that set up here. I've got my AWS account set up and I have my Azure already set up as well. These are two tests that I run for this demo purpose. Now, once I run the test, it's going to run against the resources that I have enabled, against the number of policies, config tests that I have set up as well. And the test result is going to appear in your configuration compliance. And when I go down to configuration compliance, I'm going to click on all, and that will show me everything that's here. But I want to see only my CSPM stuff. So I will do a quick filter. Type. Okay, I got my CSPM stuff here. And just now I was talking about 1.12. I'm gonna pull that up. There you go, 1.12. And for the purpose of this test, you can kind of see the results, which one we intentionally set some up that are pass and some that are fail, so you can kind of have you guys see the results of it. In this case here, I have one here that's pass, and this is for test 1.12. And if I go to the GRC policy statements, I can see that it is tied to the CIS version 8, 5.3 disabled dormant account, and PCI 4.0 as well, 8.3.7. Now, if what you can do is, I want to know exactly based on the authority document, say for CIS, or in future when we release our app, you can have your PCI 4.0 and your NIST as well. I'm going to go look at my authority documents. From there, I can see there is a PCI 4.0 authority document here. And for the purpose of this demo, we only created 5 control objective here for you guys to just kind of get a sample of what you're going to be seeing when we release our app in the store here. So for PCI 4.0, we can see that these are there's only 5 control objectives here, and one of them was to 8.4.1 use multi-factor authentication. So if I click open that, I have my list of my requirements for PCI 4.0, 8.4.1, enable authentications. I click on the control objective. And within the control objective itself, I can see my list of configuration tests that are associated with it. So in this case here, for me to pass my 8.4.1, I got to make sure that I have MFA enabled for root user account, MFA enable for encryption's enable, obviously. We also got to make sure that I have MFA enable for all IAM user. So if I want to take a look at, the conditions of this, I can go back to my, this is 1.10. And this is to ensure that multi-factor authentication is enabled for all IAM user. I'll go to the cloud policies again. And this one here was 1.10, right? Okay. I'm gonna click open that, and I can see the conditions that are set here. Now this is for that is not root account. So basically, all of the IAM user that are not root accounts are enabled with MFA. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the nice things about this policy for CSPM is that you can create any new policy that you want. So like an example would be, I one for root user account, one for non-root user account. Maybe there's another group that I want to make sure that all of them have MFA enabled. And those who are like my super users, my developers, right? So I can create new policies in here and have them map to the particular standard or regulations that I want to map to. Now, okay, all of this is all mapped, and I ran the test. I saw my test results. I saw some that are passed, some that are failed. And I can go to my compliance workspace up here. Give it a second, it should pop up soon. It's loading. There you go. All right, I am at my compliance management workspace. I can see the results of the test. If I click on view all, I can see PCI DSS 4.0 that I have showed you guys earlier. There's also the CIS control V8 SB. We put SB for SecurityBricks that we use for the demo. But if I open it up, then I should see 5 control objective and the links of the config test. Now, this is a nice dashboard that comes out of the box for you as well. This is not something that you got to configure. It's already there and built for you. And I'm going to hand this over to Anishri to kind of walk us through a little bit more around this compliance workspace.
Thanks, Ben. All right. Okay. So as Ben mentioned, this is the workspace for compliance manager or compliance team to come in and look at your compliance posture against different regulations, standards, and frameworks. So here you can see we have PCI DSS and CIS controls version 8, and you can see the compliance score against it, which Ben just explained to us. And if I go down here, I can also see the list of entities which are being non-compliant or compliant against a certain regulation. And you can see there are a bunch of cloud environments or cloud entities as well that you can see. If I click into list of non-compliant entities, you'll be able to see all the entities, in this case, some AWS environments that are compliant against certain regulations. And if I go back, I can also look at non-compliant entities, which are non-compliant against a certain regulation. Okay. Once I go back to my homepage, I can see other indicators as well. But let's look at a specific example that Ben just explained, right? We have our PCI 4.0, 8.4.1 for multi-factor authentication, which now you can see is associated with the configuration tests here, right? There are 8 of them. Now, this is the mapping that we were explaining that will be part of our accelerator. So there are CIS 8, PCI, NIST, ISO regulations and standards, which will be the requirements from those regulations and standards will be mapped out of the box to the configuration tests and the CSPM policies, basically the ones that are available out of the box. So this mapping will be available to you out of the box in the accelerator. So you don't have to do the mapping manually. Of course, if you want to map anything additional, you can do that or remove the mapping as you like. What this provides is an ability for you to monitor the compliance against a certain regulation in real time by looking at the config data that is coming from the configuration config compliance product. Now, in this case, we've mapped the 1.0, which is ensuring multi-factor authentication is enabled for all IAM users. So this one provides us the config data against this particular config test. So if I look into a specific example of a control, so as you can see, there are a list of controls that are generated based on the environments that have been scanned, right? So these are all the cloud environments that have been scanned by CSPM product, and it provides the config data to us. As soon as those environments are scanned, we generate the controls on the GRC side. And if any of the test results come back as failed, we automatically also generate the issues. So it'll tell you the controls that are non-compliant and the issue will be generated. But the next time if the scan result is passed and it comes back to IRM, this issue will be closed automatically and it will reflect the status as compliant. Now let's look at one of the controls here. So if I look at this control here, this control shows the list of indicators here. These are the indicators which have run on the config data, which has come from the configuration compliance product. And it tells us whether that particular indicator is passed or failed. If you go into the indicator, it will also give you the supporting data, which is the evidence that particular test result is passed or not. So it gives you all the details and it connects back to the configuration test and test data. This is where your compliance manager, your compliance team can come in and monitor the control on more real-time basis to see what is happening, what is a scan result, what are the misconfigurations that are coming in. This is one of the examples where you can see that the results are passed. But we were also looking at another example which Ben took us over of disabling the dormant accounts. This is a control from CIS version 8. Now, this control objective is mapped to the 4 configuration tests. One of them is ensuring credentials unused for 45 days or greater are disabled. Now, since this is mapped to config tests, again, same thing. As soon as the cloud environments are scanned, the controls will be generated for each cloud environment, and it will give you the results of compliance or non-compliance against that control, which would go ahead and generate the issue if something is non-compliant. We will look at a specific example of control here. So this control is on the environment, the AWS environment here. And as you can see, there are 2 indicators that have run. Maybe they've been scheduled to run every week or every month. And the first one failed, which gave us the failure status here. Maybe the configuration test result that we got from config compliance came back as failed. This went ahead and generated the issue for us. The next time the scan results, the environments were scanned again, and that the issue was fixed by the config team. This particular indicator would give me pass, and it'll reflect on your compliance status of your control as well as on your regulation and citation. So this is how we provide the integration between your controls, your control objective, and your CSPM policies or config tests, which gives you real-time visibility into the misconfigurations that you might catch on your cloud environments. So this is in a nutshell of the end-to-end demo of our integration with CSPM product, as well as the accelerator, which provides you the out-of-the-box mapping of control objective and config tests. If there are any questions, I will open it up.
Anisha, I can take over real quick to show the quick dashboards and wrap it up.
Yeah. And this is available. The question is on the release. So this is coming up in May as an innovation release, will be available on Utah as well. And it'll be generally available on the Vancouver release pretty soon in August, but it'll still be supported on Utah. Yes.
And just to wrap it up, here's the dashboard that we have developed from SecurityBricks. One thing that I wanted to mention earlier is when we do the config test, the data are actually not measured and tested up in the cloud environment. The metadata, once we have the account set up, are actually pulled down to ServiceNow, and the checks and verifications are based on the conditions are actually conducted on the ServiceNow instances. So none of these tests are happening up in a cloud instance environment. The metadata are pulled down and make that comparison for the verifications. Here's the dashboard that we have developed, and I'm going to pass over to Raj to go ahead and wrap it up.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Anushree. Thanks all. I just wanted to just recap. I apologize, my video isn't working, but just want to recap that what we have showed you today, it's pretty exciting, is that you've got a set of technical configuration checks that you can now check against AWS and Azure, against CIS benchmarks. You then have the ability to put some context to it against CIS 8.0. And then soon, as we release more content, it'll be against regulations that can use these configuration checks, technical configuration checks, so that you can now measure it, put some more context towards other regulations, put more risk threat levels and things like, so that you are able to now measure it and report on it. So we are going to put more content. So we have a good starter pack. We're going to develop more dashboards. The exciting thing also is it's one of the first ones in the market where we are now trying to, as Anushree mentioned, we're going to work on CIS 8.1 accelerator for the data center world, which used to be the upgrade from the 7.1 that's already in the App Store. So now you'll be able to use that accelerator with indicator templates to measure data center controls. You now can use these ones to measure cloud controls, and all of them is harmonized against the regulations. So multi-cloud, multi-computing, multi-regulatory, all of this is going to be, part of this accelerator journey that Anushree talked. So this is one of the first ones that's going to, I think it's out there. It's pretty neat because you'll have one view. Of course, there are different people managing different environments, but at least you're able to set the guidance, set the regulations that are required, because they all impact all of your computing environments. So we're able to do that in one. So that's the idea for this accelerator. We're excited. It's going to release in August. I appreciate if people can start to download in May so that we can get some feedback. At the same time, we can add more content. I know we talked about US content, but happy to add more other relevant content. And also some of these tests, they're coming out of the box, but you can add more. So it's a good starter pack, a lot of things to get you off the ground. But what you can do for environment is going to be whatever you choose to and how much more you'd like to customize it. So thank you. And if you have any questions, and Teresa, Anushree.
Yes, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Anushree and Ben and Raj, for a wonderful presentation.